President Trump is winning, and liberals know it. That's the subject of tonight's preamble. The good men and women of the FBI, they have thwarted an attack on Governor Whitmer in Michigan. Some men hatched a plot to kidnap her and put her on trial for crimes she's committed against the rights and liberties of Michiganders. Now, without proof, Whitmer claimed that these people were white supremacists, but that's not the only unproven claim she made.
Instead, our head of state has spent the past 7 months denying science, ignoring his own health experts, stoking distrust, fomenting anger. When our leaders speak, their words matter. They carry weight. When our leaders meet with, encourage, or fraternize with domestic terrorists, they legitimize their actions, and they are complicit.
Oh, you mean like you marched with BLM and Antifa? More on that in a minute. So this plot was Trump's fault. Am I getting that right? If you talk to a Democrat in an election year, everything bad that happens is Trump's fault. Forest fires, riots, high taxes, failing health care. Of course, all of these things are failing because of liberals, but that's not germane to the point I'm going to make. Michigan's governor, even though Trump has never called for kidnapping leftists or violence, says that his words have weight, that his words matter. Well, since I and most Americans are more fair than old Gretchen there, we should apply her standards to Democrats.
I just don't even know why there aren't uprisings all over the country, and maybe there will be. Enemies of the state.
I said if we were in high school, I'd take him behind the gym and beat the hell out of him.
I will go and take Trump out tonight.
And if you see anybody from that cabinet in a restaurant, in a department store, at a gasoline station, you get out and you create a crowd. And you push back on them. And you tell them they're not welcome anymore, anywhere.
And sadly, the domestic enemies to our voting system and our honoring our Constitution are right at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue.
They're not going to stop before Election Day in November, and they're not going to stop after Election Day. And that should be, everyone should take note of that on both levels, that this isn't, they're not going to let up, and they should not.
If you think we're rallying now, you ain't seen nothing yet.
Okay, now, just in case you're keeping score at home, Gretchen Whitmer wants to blame Trump, who never called for a plot to kidnap her and never called for violence. But when her own Democrat socialists actually call for violence and get it, courtesy of BLM and Antifa, Whitmer is silent. The FBI leadership said that the men who plotted to kidnap Whitmer were planning to topple Michigan's government, so they had to act. And I agree, they should have acted. So what's Christopher Wray's excuse for waiting on this?
We need a revolution in order to overthrow this system, bring a whole new communist world into being that can actually ensure the rights of black and brown people. And whether or not you agree, or if you still are caught up in this electoral politics bullshit, even if you are, even your hopes for a more progressive or liberal agenda are not going to happen while the second president of the Confederacy is in the White House. Let's work together to tear that statue down.
Revolution, nothing less.
Revolution, nothing less, huh? The FBI's leadership seems to be okay with toppling the U.S. government so long as anti-American communists are the ones doing it. The FBI protected a left-wing socialist governor from a nefarious plot, and that's a good thing. When can you and I expect the FBI will protect us from violent Marxist thugs who are killing, beating, burning, and looting our streets in an effort to burn our system down? Speaking of Marxists, Nancy Pelosi was busy playing politics with her government power today.
This is not about President Trump. He will face the judgment of the voters. But he shows the need for us to create a process for future presidents. Throughout America's history, our leaders have created and strengthened guardrails in the Constitution to ensure stability and continuity of government in times of crisis. This bill honors the duty by creating a standing commission of top former executive officials and medical experts selected in a bipartisan, bicameral way. A president's fitness for office must be determined by science and facts.
She's talking about the 25th Amendment, folks. Anyone reading the Constitution, which seems to exclude Pelosi, knows that only with the vice president's participation can the 25th Amendment be successfully used to take away a president's constitutional powers. Now, since Pence isn't going to play this game, this was a desperate move by Pelosi to get the press writing about how socialists up there are fighting the evil Trump. But this move tells us two things about Nutty Nancy and her anti-American party. Number one, if Joe Biden were really 12 points ahead, as one or two outlier polls are suggesting, would Pelosi be doing this? Of course not. There would be no need to sacrifice what little credibility that woman has left if Biden was coasting to victory. And number two, with this stunt Nancy gave the dishonest press, like the folks over there at CNN and MSNBS, she gave them the ability to cover her nothing burger story and ignore the avalanche of bad news that is flowing out from that declassification of the illegal Trump-Russia collusion investigation and Hillary's illegal email server. One other aspect to consider on this. Left-wingers in Congress, in an effort to prepare for an improbable win by Beijing Biden, are seeking to establish a protocol to replace him with his unlikable and unpopular VP, Kamala Harris. That aside, Nancy Pelosi is desperate to rule over you and hold onto power. She will stop at nothing, even if she has to destroy the ties that bind us together as Americans to achieve her goals. She will turn a blind eye to burning cities. She will snuggle up to communist China. She will let Americans suffer with no PPP and even shred the separation of powers in our founding document. The good news is we all see what she's doing. And I know for a fact that Americans are not as stupid as Nancy Pelosi thinks we are.
You just watched Newsmax TV, America's fastest growing cable news channel, now in more than 70 million homes. You can get Newsmax TV on your cable system or check your cable guide. And if your system doesn't carry Newsmax, call them, tell them you want Newsmax TV, because we're real news for real people.